When the evening of Declamation arrives, the Cambridge community all gathers together in one place. And suddenly, there comes a sound like the forceful lungs of ancient Roman orators. And it fills the entire hall where we sit. Divided tongues will appear among us tonight, some familiar, others foreign. Our esteemed judges are here to interpret these tongues. Lauren Johnson, a 2003 Cambridge graduate, worked as our director of college placement and now as a freelance college admissions consultant. Andrew Moran, who has judged this competition before, teaches English at the University of Dallas and leads high school students on a program called Shakespeare in Italy. Kyle Queel formerly served as headmaster at the Covenant School of Dallas and recently became the director of assessment at Responsive Education Solutions, the largest charter school organization in Texas. The word declaim originates from a Latin verb that means to cry or shout. Please do not expect our contestants to actually sob or scream. Tissues and earplugs will not be provided. Declamation is an event less for actors than for orators who memorize and deliver noteworthy texts. They embody the words deeply enough that we, in the audience, may slow down to listen rapturously. And it is so important to listen, to really listen, in this age of work, that is to say, of hurry, of indecent and perspiring haste, which wants to get everything done at once. Tonight we hark back to the Roman orator Cicero. He celebrated the communication ideal of uniting eloquence with wisdom. His ideal was adapted for Christian education by Augustine, who considered the Christian scriptures to be the model of eloquent wisdom. Augustine's influence bequeathed the ideals of wisdom and eloquence into Christian liberal arts education, extending all the way down through the Renaissance and beyond. In my own modest attempt to do what our students do, combining the tongue of the mouth with the tongue of the brain, I will now declaim the pulley from George Herbert, a 17th century Anglican priest and poet. Herbert imaginatively takes us into God's presence on the day he created humans. He represents God discoursing with himself regarding which blessings to give his newly created beings. I know of no literature that speaks more truthfully and eloquently about the human condition of repining restlessness. When God at first made man, having a glass of blessing standing by, "Let us," he said, "pour on him all we can. Let the world's riches which dispersed lie contract into a span." So strength first made way. Then beauty flowed. Then wisdom, honor, pleasure. When almost all was out, God made a stay, perceiving that, alone of all his treasure, rest in the bottom lay. "For if I should," he said, "bestow this jewel also on my creature, he would adore my gifts instead of me and rest in nature, not the God of nature. So both should losers be. Yet, let him keep the rest, but keep them with repining restlessness. Let him be rich and weary, that at least, if goodness lead him not, yet weariness may toss him to my breast.
This old Mr. Lissa has treated me thus. It has led me amongst the shafts of the forest. Returning is not possible, and going forward is a great difficulty. The affairs of this world are like chameleon fizzes into which I have stepped. When I clean, it cannot go. I am at the world's extreme corner. I am not sitting in the row with the eminent. But those who are lucky sit in the middle and forget. I am at the world's extreme corner. I can only go beyond and forget. My people, I have been somewhere. If I turn here, the rain beats me. If I turn there, the sun burns me. The firewood of this world is only for those who can take heart. That is why not all can gather it. The world is not good for anybody, but you're so happy with your fate. Alas, the travelers are back, all covered with debt. Some things happen to me. The thing so great I cannot weep. I have no sons to fire the gun when I die, and no daughters to wail when I close my mouth. I have wandered on the wilderness, the great wilderness men call life. The rain has beaten me, and the sharp stumps cut as keen as knives. I shall go beyond and rest. I have no king and no brother. Death has made war upon our house, and Pectus' great household is no more. Only the broken fence stands. And those who dare not look in his face have come out as men. How well the fight is with them. Let those gone before take note. They have treated their offspring badly. What is the waiting for? Someone is dead. Agosu himself. Alas, a snake has beaten me. My right arm is broken, and the tree on which I lean is fallen. Agosi, if you go, tell them. Tell Iyebedu, Petty, and Kobe they have done us evil. Tell them their house is fallen, and the trees in the fence have been eaten by termites, and the martyrs curse them. Ask them why they idle there while we suffer and eat sand. And the crows and the vulture hover always above our broken fences, and strangers walk over our portion. Sometimes we read the lines in the green leaf, run our fingers through the smooth of the precious wood from our ancient trees. Sometimes even the sunset is puzzled as we look for the lines that propel the clouds.
Being told I would be expected to talk here, I inquired what sort of talk I ought to make. They said it should be something suitable to the youth, something didactic, instructive, and something in the nature of good advice. Very well. I have a few things in my mind which I have often longed to say for the instruction of the young. For it is one's tender, early years that these things will best take root and be most enduring and most valuable. First, then, I say to you, my young friends, and I say it beseechingly, urgingly, Always obey your parents when they're present. This is the best policy in the long run because if you do not, they will make you. Most parents think they know better than you do, and you can generally make more by humoring that superstition than by acting on your own, better judgment. Be respectful to your superiors, if you have them. Also to strangers, and sometimes to others. If a person offends you, and you are in doubt as to whether the offense was intentional or not, do not resort to extreme measures. Simply watch your chance and hit him with a brick. That will be sufficient. Now, if you should come to find out that he had not intended any offense, come out frankly and confess yourself in the wrong when you struck him. Acknowledge it like a man, and say you didn't mean to. Yes, always avoid violence. In this age of charity and kindliness, the time is past for such things. Leave dynamite alone unrefined. Go to bed early and get up early. This is wise. Some authorities say, get up with the sun. Others with one thing and some with another. But a lark is really the best thing to get up with. It gives you a splendid reputation with everybody to know that you get up with a lark. And if you get the right kind of lark and work it him right, you can easily train him to wake up at 9:30 every time. It's no trick at all. And never handle firearms carelessly. The sorrow and the suffering that have been caused through the innocent but heedless handling of firearms by the young. Only 4 days ago, in the farmhouse next to the one where I am spending the summer, a grandmother, old, sweet, and gray, was sitting at her work as her grandson crept in and got down an old, battered, rusty gun, which had not been touched for many years and was supposed to have not been loaded. And he pointed it at her, laughing, ready to shoot. And in her fright, she ran to the other side of the room. And as she passed him, he placed the gun almost against her very breast and pulled the trigger. He had supposed it was not loaded. And he was right. It wasn't. But that is the only case of that kind I have ever heard of. Therefore, just the same, don't you meddle with old, unloaded firearms. They're the most deadly and the most unerring things that have ever been created by mankind. You don't have to take any pains with them at all. You don't have to have a rest. You don't have to have any sights on the gun. You don't even need to take an aim. No. Just pick a relative and bang away. A youth who can't hit a cathedral at 30 yards with a Gatling gun in 3/4 of an hour can pick up an old unloaded musket and bag his grandmother every time out of 100. Think of what Waterloo would have been if one of the armies would have been boys with old unloaded muskets and the others were comprised of their female relations. The very thought of it makes one shudder. There are many sorts of books, but the good ones are the sort for the young to read. They are a great, an inestimable, and an unspeakable means of improvement. Therefore, be very careful in your selection, my friends. Confine yourselves exclusively to Baxter's Saint Rest, The Innocents Abroad, and works of that kind. But I have said enough. I hope you will make these words and instructions a light to your understanding and a guide to your path. Build your character painstakingly and thoughtfully upon these precepts. And when you've got it built, you'll be surprised and gratified to see how well it resembles everybody else's.
On either side the river lie long fields of barley and of rye that clothe the world and meet the sky, and through the field the road runs by to many-towered Camelot. And up and down the people go, gazing where the lilies blow, round an island there below, the island of Shalott. Willows whiten, aspens quiver, little breezes dusk and shiver, through the wave that runs forever by the island in the river, flowing down to Camelot. 4 gray walls and 4 gray towers overlook a space of flowers, and the silent isle embowers the Lady of Shalott. But who hath seen her wave her hand, or at the casement seen her stand, or is she known in all the land, the Lady of Shalott? Only reapers reaping early and among the bearded barley hear a song that echoes cheerly from a river winding clearly down to towered Camelot. And by the moon the reaper weary, piling sheaves in uplands airy, listening, whispers, "'Tis the very Lady of Shalott." There she weaves by night and day a magic web with colors gay. She's heard a whisper say, a curse is on her if she stay to look down to Camelot. She knows not what the curse may be, and so she weaveth steadily, and little other care hath she, the Lady of Shalott. And moving through a mirror clear that hangs before her all the year, shadows of the world appear. There she sees the highway near winding down to Camelot. Sometimes a troop of damsels glad, an abbot on an ambling pad, sometimes a curly shepherd lad or long-haired page in crimson clad goes by to towered Camelot. And sometimes through the mirror blue, the knights come riding 2 and 2. She hath no loyal knight and true, the Lady of Shalott. But in her web she still delights to weave the mirror's magic sights. For often through the silent nights, a funeral with plumes and lights and music went to Camelot. Or when the moon was overhead, came 2 young lovers lately wed. "I am half sick of shadows," said the Lady of Shalott. A bowshot from her bower eaves he rode between the barley sheaves. The sun came dazzling through the leaves and flamed upon the brazen greaves of bold Sir Lancelot. His broad clear brow in sunlight glowed, on burnished hooves his war horse trode, from underneath his helmet flowed his coal-black curls as on he rode down to towered Camelot. From the bank and from the river he flashed into the crystal mirror. "Tiralira," by the river sang Sir Lancelot. She left the web, she left the loom. She made 3 paces through the room. She saw the water lily bloom, she saw the helmet and the plume. She looked down to Camelot. Out flew the web and floated wide, the mirror cracked from side to side. "The curse has come upon me," cried the Lady of Shalott. In the stormy east wind straining, the pale yellow woods were waning, the broad stream and his banks complaining, heavily the low sky raining over towered Camelot. Down she came and found a boat, beneath the willow left afloat, and round about the prow she wrote, "The Lady of Shalott." And at the closing of the day she loosed the chain and down she lay. The broad stream bore her far away, the Lady of Shalott. And as the boat had wound along, the willowy hills and fields among, they heard her singing her last song, the Lady of Shalott. For ere she reached upon the tide, the first house by the waterside, singing in her song, she died, the Lady of Shalott. Under tower and balcony, by garden wall and gallery, a gleaming shape she floated by, dead pale between the houses high, silent into Camelot. Out upon the wharfs they came, knight and burgher, lord and dame, and round the prow they read her name, the Lady of Shalott. "Who is this, and what is here?" And in the lighted palace near died the sound of royal cheer. and they cross themselves for fear, all the knights at Camelot. But Lancelot mused a little space. He said, "She has a lovely face. God in his mercy lend her grace, the Lady of Shalott." Men of our city, Argive elders here, I shame not in your presence to avow my wifely temper. Bashful fear in time for mortals dieth, not by others taught, but from myself. The wretched life I'll tell, 'twas mine to lead while this man was at Troy. First, for a woman severed from her mate, to sit forlorn at home is grievous woe, hearing malignant murmurs manifold. One courier comes, another in his train worse tidings brings to echo through the house. And as for wounds had my dear lord received as many as report kept pouring in, the net, methinks, had not been more transpierced, nor had he died oft as reported then. A second triple-bodied Geryon, a threefold cloak of earth he must have donned, enduring death in every form he wore. Thus harassed by these ever-rife reports, full often from my neck have forceful hands seized and untied the beam-suspended noose. And for this cause our son, pledge of our troth, of mine and thine, stands not beside me now as stand he should, Orestes. Marvel not, for him thy trusty spear-cast nourisheth, Strophius, the Phocian, who hath me forewarned of twofold peril, thine neath Ilion's walls and next less clamoured fostered anarchy hazard the plot. For 'tis with men inborn to trample further him already down. This pretext, trust me, carries no deceit. But for myself the gushing founts of grief are all dried up. No single tear is left. Sore with late watching are my weary eyes, weeping, the fiery beacons, set for thee, neglected ever. Often from my dreams was I awakened by the tiny hum of buzzing gnats, seeing, endured by thee, more woes than could have filled mine hour of sleep. These sorrows past, now with a heart unwrung, I hail my husband, watchdog of the fold, sure forestay of the ship, of lofty roof, pillar firm-based, sire's sole-begotten child, land beyond hope, looming to mariners, day after storm, most brilliant to behold, to thirsty wayfarer, clear, gushing spring. Sooth, sweet it is to scape from harsh constraint. With such addresses do I honor him. Let envy stand aloof, for we have borne ere this full many a woe. Now, dear my lord, come from thy car, but on the ground, O king, plant not the foot that trampled Ilion. Maidens, why tarry ye, whose duty 'tis with carpets to bespread his stepping floor? Swift, purple strew his passage to a home unlooked for, e'en as justice may conduct. What further she decreeth with the gods, thought
not by sleep o'ermastered, shall dispose.
The habit of reading is one of the greatest resources of mankind, and we enjoy reading books that belong to us much more than if they are borrowed. A borrowed book is like a guest in the house. It must be treated with punctiliousness, with a certain considerate formality. You must see that it sustains no damage. It must not suffer harm while under your roof. You cannot treat it familiarly. You cannot mark it. You cannot turn down the pages. You cannot leave it carelessly. And then someday, although this is seldom done, you really ought to return it. But your own books, they belong to you. You treat them with that affectionate intimacy that annihilates formality. Books are for use, not for show. You should own no book that you are afraid to mark up or afraid to leave on the table wide open and face down. A good reason for the marking of favorite passages in books is that this practice allows you to remember more easily the significant sayings, to refer to them quickly, and then in later years. It is like visiting a forest where you once blazed a trail. You have the pleasure of going over the old ground and remembering both the intellectual scenery and your own earlier self. Everyone should begin collecting a private library in youth. The instinct of private property, which is fundamental in all human beings, can here be cultivated with every advantage and no evils. One should have one's own bookshelves, which should not have doors, glass windows, or keys. They should be free and accessible to the hand as well as to the eye. The best of mural decorations is books. They are more varied in color and appearance than any wallpaper. They are more attractive in design, and they have the prime advantage of being separate personalities, so that if you sit alone in a room in the firelight, you're surrounded with intimate friends. The knowledge that they are there in plain view is both stimulating and refreshing. You do not have to read them all. Most of my indoor life is spent in a room containing 6,000 books, and I have a stock answer to the invariable question from strangers, have you read all of these books? Some of them twice. This answer is both unexpected and true. There are, of course, no friends like living, breathing, corporeal men and women. My devotion to books has never made me a recluse. How could it? Books are of the people, by the people, for the people. Literature is the immortal part of history. It is the best and most enduring part of personality. But book friends have this advantage over living friends. You can enjoy the most truly aristocratic society in the world whenever you want. The great dead are beyond our physical reach, and the great living are usually almost as inaccessible. As for our personal friends and acquaintances, we cannot always see them. Perchance they are asleep or away on a journey. But in a private library, you can at any point converse with Socrates, or Shakespeare, or Carlyle, or Dumas, or Dickens, or Barrie, or Shaw, or Galsworthy. And there's no doubt that in these books you see these men at their best. They wrote for you. They laid themselves out. They did their ultimate best to entertain you, to make a favorable impression. And you are as necessary to them as an audience is to an actor. Only, instead of seeing them masked, you peer into their innermost heart of hearts.
In our manner of living, we show an elegance tempered with frugality, and we cultivate philosophy without enervating the mind. We display our wealth in our season of beneficence, and not in the vanity of discourse. A confession of poverty is disgrace to no man. No effort to avoid it is disgrace indeed. There is present in the same persons in attention to their own private concerns and those of the public. And in others engaged in the labors of life, there is a competent skill in the affairs of government. For we are the only people who think him that does not meddle in state affairs not indolent, but good for nothing. And yet we pass the soundest judgments and are quick at catching the right apprehensions of things, not thinking that words are prejudicial to actions, but rather the not being duly prepared by previous debate before proceeding to execution. Herein consists our distinguishing excellence, that in the hour of our action, we show the greatest courage. The courage of others is a result of ignorance. Deliberation makes them cowards. And those truly must be owned to have the greatest souls who, most acutely sensible of the miseries of war and the sweets of peace, are not thence in the least deterred from facing danger. That I have not on this occasion made use of the pomp of words, but the truth of the facts. That height to which by such a conduct this state hath risen is an undeniable proof. For we are the only people of the world who are found to be greater by experience than in report. The only people who, repelling the attacks of an invading enemy, exempt their defeat from the blush of indignation, and to their tributaries yield no discontent, as if subject to men unworthy to command. That we deserve our power, we need no evidence to manifest. We have great and signal proofs of this, which entitle us to present and future ages. We want no Homer to be the herald of our praise, no poet to deck off a history with the charms of verse, in which exploits must suffer by strict relation. Every sea hath been opened by our navy, and every land hath been penetrated by our army, leaving behind them eternal monuments of our enmity and our friendship. In the just defense of such a state, these victims of their own valor have valiantly fought and bravely died. And every one of those who survives is ready, I am persuaded, to sacrifice life in such a cause. And I have enlarged so much on national points so as to give the clearest proof that we have more at stake than those men whose public advantages are less, and to illustrate by actual evidence how great a commendation is due to them who are now my subject, and the greatest part of which they have already received. The fatal period to which these gallant souls are now reduced is the surest evidence of their merit, an evidence begun in their lives and completed in their deaths. For it is a debt of justice to pay superior honors to men who died fighting for their country. Their last service effaceth all former demerits. It extends to the public, their private concerns extended only to a few. One passion there was in their minds, much stronger than this, the desire of vengeance on their enemies. What their eyes showed plainly must be done, they trusted their valor to accomplish, thinking more glorious to defend themselves and die in the attempt than to yield and live. From the reproach of cowardice, indeed, they fled, but presenting their bodies to the shock of battle, when insensible of fear, but triumphing in hope, in the doubtful charge they instantly dropped, and thus discharged the duty to which brave men owe their country.
This is a song by Isaac Albanese, Asturias, a Spanish song that was originally written for the piano.
spoke to Job out of the storm. He said, "Who is this that obscures my plans with the words without knowledge? Brace yourself like a man, for I will question you, and you will answer me. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footing set? Or who laid its cornerstone? While the morning stars sang together, and all the angels shouted for joy. Who shut up the sea behind doors when it burst forth from the womb? When I made clouds its garment and wrapped it in thick darkness. When I set limits for it. When I said, this far you may come and no farther. This is where your proud waves halt. Have you ever given orders to the morning, or told the dawn its place, that it might take the earth by its corners and shake the wicked out of it? The earth takes shape like clay under a seal. Its figures stand out like those of a garment. The wicked are denied their light, and their upraised arm is broken. Have you journeyed to the springs of the sea? Have you traveled in the recesses of the darkness? Have the gates of death been shown to you? Have you seen the gates of the deepest darkness? Can you comprehend the vast expansions of the earth? Surely you can. What is the way to the abode of light? Where does the darkness reside? Can you take me to their places? Do you know the paths to their dwellings? Surely you do. You've already been born. You have lived so many years. Can you take me to the storehouse of the snow? Have you seen the storehouse of the hail, which I reserve for the times of trouble, the days of war and battle? Do you know the place where the east wind scatters across the earth, where the lightning disperses on the land? Can you cut a channel for the torrents of rain, a path for the thunderstorms, to water a land where no one lives, a desolate wasteland, to make it sprout with grass? Does the frost have a father? Who gave birth to the frost from the heavens, to make the surface of the deep hard as stone? Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? Can you eat out the constellations in their seasons? Can you eat out the bear with its cub? Do you know the laws of the heavens? Can you set up God's dominion over all the earth?
When a young woman graduates from college and starts looking for a job, she is likely to have a frustrating, even demeaning experience ahead of her. If she walks into an office for an interview, the first question she'll be asked is, do you type? There is a calculated system of prejudice that lies unspoken behind that question. Why is it acceptable for women to be secretaries, librarians, and teachers, but totally unacceptable for women to be managers, administrators, doctors, lawyers, and members of Congress? The unspoken assumption is that women are different. They do not have executive ability, orderly minds, stability, leadership skills, and that they are too emotional. As a Black person, I am no stranger to race prejudice. But the truth is, in the political world, I have been far oftener discriminated against because I'm a woman than because I am Black. Prejudice against Blacks is becoming more unacceptable, although it will take years to eliminate it. But it is doomed because white America is beginning to admit that it exists. Prejudice against women is still acceptable. But there's very little understanding, yet of the immorality involved in the double pay scales and the classification for most better jobs asked for men only. There are more than half of the population in the United States is female, but only 2% of the population hold managerial positions. They haven't even reached the level of tokenism yet. No women sit on the AFL-CIO Council or the Supreme Court. There have only been 2 women who have held cabinet ranks. At present, there are none. Only 2 women hold ambassadorial ranks in diplomatic corps. In Congress, we are down to 1 senator and 10 representatives. Considering that there are 3.5 million more women in the United States than men, this situation is outrageous. But it is true that part of the problem has been that women have not been aggressive enough in demanding their rights. This was also true of the Black population for many years. They have submitted to oppression and even cooperated with it. Women have done the same thing. Now, there's an awareness among the population, as in the field of equal rights for Blacks, Spanish Americans, Indians, and other groups. Laws will not change such deep-seated problems overnight, but it will be used to provide protection for those who are most abused and to begin the process of evolutionary change by compelling the insensitive majority and to re-examine the unconscious attitudes. It is for this reason that I wish to propose a document that has been before every Congress for the last 40 years. And sooner or later must become part of the basic law of the land, the Equal Rights Amendment.
You have taken me prisoner with all my warriors, for I am much grieved. For I expected, if I did not defeat you, to hold out much longer, give you much trouble till I surrendered. I tried hard to bring you into ambush, but your last general understands Indian fighting. The first one was not so wise. Once I realized that I could not defeat you by Indian fighting, I determined to rush on you, fight face to face. I fought hard, but your guns were well aimed. The bullets flew like birds in the air and whizzed by your ears like the wind, the trees in the winter. My warriors fell around me, began to look dismal. I saw an evil day at hand. The sun rose dim on us in the morning and sunk into a dark cloud at night. Looked like a ball of fire. This was the last sun that shone on Black Hawk. His heart was dead, no longer beats quick in his bosom. He is now prisoner of the white men. But they can do with him as they wish. He can stand torture. He is not afraid of death. He is no coward. Black Hawk is an Indian. He has done nothing for which an Indian ought to be ashamed. He fought for his countrymen, the squaws, the papoose, against the white men, come year after year to cheat them, take them from their lands. You know the cause of our making war. It is known to all white men. Gotta be ashamed of it. The white men despise Indians and drive them from their homes. But Indians are not deceitful. The white men speak bad of Indian, to them spitefully. The Indians do not tell lies. Indian do not steal. An Indian who is bad as white men cannot live in our nation. He will be put to death, ate up by wolves. White men are bad schoolmasters, carry false looks, deal false actions. They smile in the face of the poor Indian to cheat him, shake their hand to gain their confidence, to make them drunk, to deceive them, to ruin our lives. We told them to leave us alone, but they followed on their pursuit paths. They coiled themselves among us like a snake, poisoned us by their touch. We were not safe. We lived in danger. We were becoming like them, hypocrites, liars, adulterers, lazy drones, all talkers, no workers. An Indian? Oh no, Black Hawk, it's a true Indian. He disdains to cry like a woman. He feels for his wife, his children, and his friends. He does not care for himself. He cares for his nation and these Indians. They will suffer. He laments their fate. The white men do not scalp their heads. They do worse. They poison the heart. It is not pure within. His countrymen will not be scalped. But in a few years, they will become like white men, so they cannot be trusted. And there must be, as in all the white settlements, as many officers as are men. Take care of them, keep them in order. Farewell, my nation. Black Hawk tried to save you, to avenge your wrongs. He drank the blood of some whites, but he is now a prisoner of the white men. He can do no more. The sun is setting. His plans are stopped. Farewell, Black Hawk.
Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning, or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." He who was seated on the throne said, "I am making everything new." Then he said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." He said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. Those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, the idolaters, and all liars, they will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death." One of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls full of the 7 last plagues came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb." And he carried me away in the Spirit to a mountain great and high, and showed me the holy city,
Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. It shone with the glory of God, and its brilliance was like that of a very precious jewel, like a jasper, clear as crystal. It had a great high wall with 12 gates and with 12 angels at the gates. On the gates were written the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. There were 3 gates at the east, 3 in the north, 3 in the south, and 3 in the west. The wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were written the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. The angel who spoke with me had a measuring rod of gold to measure the city, its gates, and its walls. The city was laid out like a square, as long as it was wide. He used the rod to measure the city and found it to be 12,000 stadia in length, and as wide and high as it is long. The angel then measured the wall of the city and found it to be 144 cubits thick. The wall was made of jasper, and the city of pure gold, as pure as glass. The angel who talked with me had a measuring, pure as glass. The wall of the city was decorated with every kind of precious stone. The first being jasper, the second sapphire, the third agate, the fourth emerald, the fifth onyx, the 6th ruby, the 7th chrysolite, the 8th beryl, the 9th topaz, the 10th turquoise, the 11th jacinth, and the 12th amethyst. The 12 gates were 12 pearls, each gate made of a single pearl. The main street of the city was made of gold, as pure as transparent glass. I did not see a temple in the city, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and the Lamb is its lamp. On no day will the gates ever be shut, for there will be no night there. Nothing impure will ever enter it, nor will anyone who does what is shameful or deceitful, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life.
There was quite a bit of deliberation. It came back twice. But the decisions have been made. I think we have some great judges with astute, sensitive judgments. And so tonight, let's start with the middle school. The winner in the middle school, Declamation, Harrison Reynolds. For the upper school declamation, in 3rd place, Becca Mile. Second place, Ben Monaire. First place, Oliver Weir. Now, to all those who won, please do do not depart this facility until we can take some photographs afterwards. So please come up here, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Wolf, who will provide us a benediction. Thank you all for coming out. This is a special tradition. I'm glad to be a part of it. I was telling a student outside, I wish I could have done this in high school. Well, tonight I got a modest chance to do it along with the rest of the students.
Thank you again for coming this evening. The Apostle John closes out one of his letters by saying, "Though I have much more to write to you, I would rather not use pen and paper. I would rather come to you and speak to you face to face, that we might talk and that our joy might be complete. May it be so among us as we learn to talk." Yes, honey, I'm listening to my own words. "And may the peace of Christ be with you." Amen.
Amen.